Lyft's mission has always been about sitting at the intersection of technology, mobility, and urban life. So how do we make getting from point A to point B simpler, of course, but safer and, of course, more flexible for millions of people?
Would you be able to tell us more about the company?
Lyft is what we call a global mobility platform. And when we think about ourselves as part of like the broader mobility ecosystem, we've really been about helping people move around cities in smarter ways.
What would you love to accomplish with your team for the end of this year?
Continuing to build creative work that people remember, but also making sure that it's very tightly tied to the product and the value we're delivering for our riders and our drivers.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. The show is brought to you by the Global Talent Company, helping fast-growing teams hire exceptional remote talent from Argentina, South Africa, and beyond. We connect companies with world-class professionals who bring skill, reliability, and a global perspective to every role. And just for our listeners, we're offering an exclusive 10% discount on your first hire. All you need to do is visit globaltalent.co, click Start Hiring, and mention the podcast listener discount when we reach out. And today, with me here, guys, I'm speaking with Cass Zawadowski, Executive Creative Director at Lyft, one of the first ride-sharing communities in the United States since 2012, if I'm not mistaken. But, Cass, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, we are very happy also that we were able to make this work, and especially speaking to a company such as Lyft that I personally know who you guys are. I've seen you around, but just in case, Cass, anybody listening does not know what Lyft is, would you be able to tell us more about the company, about yourself, and how you came to be the Executive Creative Director of Lyft?
Yeah, I'm going to start with your question about Lyft. Thank you for giving me the opportunity there to go a little deep on the brand. So what does Lyft do? What markets does it serve? Really, at its core, Andreas, Lyft is what we call a global mobility platform. So not just a ride-sharing company anymore. We are now 13 and a half, almost 14 years old. And when we think about ourselves as part of like the broader mobility ecosystem, we've really been about helping people move around cities in smarter ways. Of course, that includes traditional rideshare, but also things like bikes and scooters.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that, yeah, Lyft does service bikes in a lot of different cities. Citi Bike in New York, Divvy Bike in Chicago, and of course, yeah, other cities too. And then we've got our scooters in some places too. But in terms of the market that we actually serve, it's pretty broad. So we are primarily North American based right now. We'll be moving into the European market through this year. We did have an acquisition last year of FreeNow, which has allowed us to move into quite a few countries across Europe. And so on one side of all of that, we serve about 51.5 million people globally a year. So riders who really need reliable transportation for everyday life, whether we're talking about commuting to the airport, their job, or just going out with friends. And then on the other side of the platform, of course, we serve drivers. I think right now over 1 million drivers
Wow.
who are just really looking for flexible earning opportunities. So I'd say at the bigger level, then we're also serving cities by helping reduce friction of how people, move around. And our mission has always been, Lyft's mission has always been about sitting at the intersection of technology, mobility, and urban life. So how do we make getting from point A to point B simpler, of course, but safer and, of course, more flexible for millions of people? So that's in a maybe a long-winded nutshell what Lyft does and who we serve. And I'm happy to tell you a little bit about my journey. I would say pretty unconventional. So my journey into advertising was very much fueled by curiosity. I started out in ad school, just kind of falling in love with the idea of storytelling and the way that creativity could sort of shape culture. And I worked early in my career, actually through the majority of my career, I have been agency side, both in Toronto. And then I had the opportunity as well to venture out into the world and see how creativity worked in different parts of the world. So I also moved abroad for a couple of years of my career, worked out in New York City, worked in Germany, worked in Seoul. So really got a chance to understand diversity of thought across global brands and, of course, across teams and cultures. And then I had the opportunity to try something brand side a few years ago, or client side, however you like to refer to it. And it really inspired me, Andreas. It gave me a very different perspective. Suddenly I wasn't just thinking about, campaigns on the agency side. I was really thinking about the entire brand, the business, the culture of a company. And that really was something that inspired me. So from that brand side role, the opportunity at Lyft came up. And I really admired not only the company, but I think it's important when you move into a role like this that you understand and admire the vision and the mission of the business and the brand, as well as your executive leadership. So I did, my due diligence of course, interviewing with the leaders, but understanding who they were as individuals and how they believed in the value of marketing. And
Um,
so back in about a year and a bit ago, I landed at Lyft.
in terms of advertisings or any campaigns that that you've had to like do, manage, or oversee, could you give us an example of any good ones that you've noticed that Lyft has done that you could maybe give us an example of?
Yeah, yeah, Lyft has been so in my time, I'll just take a step back because in my time at Lyft, I've had some different priorities and goals. So of course, yes, brand campaign and brand strategy, but first and foremost, last year was a very foundational year for Lyft. We were undergoing a complete rebrand. So as I mentioned, last year we turned 13, turning 14 this year. And we all joked, 13 is, you're a teenager now. You are undergoing some changes. You want to show up a little differently. So our rebrand last year was very much rooted in the brand maturing, if you will. We've been
Oh,
a
great.
very punchy, spirited, fun-loving brand, and it has very well served us for our brand life. But lots of new competitors coming to the market, and just an opportunity for the brand to show up a bit differently. So, the premise of my first year was really about helping, you know, co co-steer our new brand. Uh, our new look at the at how we reshape the brand from visual identity, verbal identity, how we showed up with our just brand strategy in general, and of course thinking about our new brand archetype. And so again, that was the culmination of last year. And then in addition, Andreas, we did embark on a our first brand campaign that was the culmination of the new brand. So that was around Q4 of last year, and we got to market, quite quickly. Our opportunity was to really speak to some of the, I'll call them young working adults, mid 20s to mid 30s range, and yeah, we saw some great success with moving specifically two markets that were very important for us to move: the New York market and the San Francisco. That is our home base. So of course, always looking for opportunities to keep the brand growing in those markets. And we went to the market with a varied message around not being on autopilot when it comes to rideshare. You do have options as a rider, and when you look into your options, those options usually serve you better. So a lot of fun with some really great headlines. And some tremendous partnerships with some creators that really helped drive some results for the campaign as well.
Okay, and how long did the rebranding take? Like, was it the whole year that you guys were working on just changing the image and how Lyft looked and representing that new maturity that you're mentioning? That it's 13 years old. Yes, you are a preteen right there, and it's it's crazy. But yeah, was that a project that took the whole year?
It did actually, yes. It took the whole year. I mean, it was definitely an evolution of the brand, not a revolution, as we like to say internally. We, for example, maintained our very well-known Lyft pink, but the ways in which we use that color are a little bit relegated now. We use it very differently than we used to. So we explored a whole new primary color palette. We explored a secondary color palette. We changed our logo Again, wanted some of that maturity to be injected in, not just how we showed up visually, but also through brand identity, like our logo. We changed all of the way we approach photography. And so when you think, and then all of that, of course, starting and being rooted in a new brand strategy that is related to our purpose and to our value proposition. So our purpose at Lyft is to serve and connect. And our mission, I'm sorry, our value proposition is to expect more from every journey. So when you take that language and you think about strategically how to start bringing that to life, there was different ways, as I said, that we wanted to explore color, that we wanted to show how humanity and warmth and connection showed up in the brand. And then, of course, takes a year, Andreas, because Lyft's a big company. And at the end of the day, the way the brand shows up is not just in marketing and communications, assets. It's through our product as well, through our marketplace. So tremendous partnership across cross-functional partners. Of course, our executive leadership team weighing in. So a year because it was a very purposeful exercise, a year because there was a lot of things we had to consider, and just a really great example, in my opinion, being one of the very first things I worked on when I went to Lyft. Just tremendous respect and partnership across the entire organization for getting to the best place we possibly could with a new brand that was reflective of not just where we are now, but where we're trying to go as well. Lyft is, as we just talked about, of course, more than just rideshare. We're also moving into global expansion, as I mentioned. We're in the AV space now. So really needed a brand that was maybe a little less mustache and a little bit more grown up. Not that the mustache did not serve us well for many years, but it was just time for something new. So yeah, that was a whole just about a year, Andreas. I'm going to round up and say a year, maybe slightly like a month less. But and we worked with a tremendous agency partner, Koto, out of New York. So they were our design partners and design
Okay.
thinkers on this exercise.
Wow. No, and I ask why a year because I understand how big Lyft is as a company, and I totally applaud you guys for really taking the time to make sure that the rebranding and what you are laying now as a foundation of how people are going to remember Lyft is something that is going to add a lot more longevity to the brand, and it's going to make it a lot more sustainable. But it's amazing understanding how long it could take a big brand such as Lyft to actually do a complete rebranding, as you're mentioning, because a year I felt it's even not that long for how big I know Lyft is, but I imagine there must be a lot of bureaucracy as well in terms of changes that will occur, approvals that need to happen, and anything like that. So really, really congratulate you guys on that, because I must say, Lyft's colors are my favorite from all the apps and all the competitors you have. Lyft is the one I like the most. Although it's a shame it's not here in Argentina, because I'm located in Buenos Aires, and when I came, I thought I'd see Lyft and your competitors all here, but I only know one, although I won't say their name because,
Okay, you know what? You can. We invite healthy competition. Our CEO, David Risher, is sometimes we refer to them as the other guys, Andreas, but we also don't shy away from it's all in spirit of healthy competition. And who knows, maybe very soon Lyft will be in South America. We are we're just making our move into Europe, but who knows what the future holds. I do just want to note, I love that you mentioned longevity, because I think what great brands do is they think about longevity. And I think there's two things you need to balance when you're thinking about that. I think you need to be stable in your purpose. So regardless of how our rebrand went, we never wavered in our purpose. And
of
I think
course.
you have to be really flexible in how you show up in the world. And I think that was even more prevalent in our exploration last year. I think looking at some of the brands that have real longevity, they're doing a couple of other things really well too. Clear sense of who they are. I think the strongest brands really know what they stand for, and then what they don't stand for too.
Okay.
And the third is they really evolve with culture. I think longevity doesn't mean staying the same forever, of course. Case in point, last year, what we did. But I think it means staying relevant. And I think Levi's is a great brand example of a brand that has embraced longevity beautifully. They've always delivered on that promise of what their product, or in this case, their product for sure, but in our case would be the service that and just consistently lived up to the story that they're telling. And I think that's a great way to have brand trust over time.
And Cass, in terms of Lyft as a company and looking not in the outward perspective, but more in terms of the teams you guys have, is Lyft a remote first company, or do you guys have physical headquarters in San Francisco and in other places? Not sure if you're opening headquarters in Europe now that you're going to offer the service there, but would love to know more about that.
We are a hybrid first company. So our headquarters has been and always will be, I believe, in San Francisco. That's where our biggest team sits. Of course, that's where we were born and bred, so it makes a lot of sense. In the US, our second biggest office is in New York City. We have a large team sitting there. A lot of our social team and a lot of our comms teams members sit in, and some of our creative studio sit in New York. And then in San Francisco, I should go back a beat for you here. Most of our executive leadership team sits there. So the C-suite, most of our product developers and product marketers sit there, and then some of our creative studio as well. And then now about 2.5, I'll round up a little bit. About 2.5 years ago, we opened the Toronto office, and we've been growing exponentially.
Wow.
So our whole brand marketing team sits in Toronto. Some of our creative studio as well sit in Toronto. And then a lot of our engineers and product team, a lot of our talent team sit in Toronto. We're just growing by the day. We're actually moving into a new head office in Toronto later this summer, August 2026, which will be really nice. Yeah, a nice new big official home for the Toronto team. We've got some of our I mentioned bikes and scooters team. They are part of what we call the Lust team at Lyft Urban Solutions, and we have a large Lyft Urban Solutions team in Montreal. And then a few team members in Mexico City and in Europe. And as we start to expand more officially through Europe, I don't know what shape that will take yet. But our FreeNow partners currently, have offices in Germany and Spain and in the UK. So they're very well represented in different cities across the European landscape. But then
Wow.
structurally, I'll just talk a little bit maybe about the team, more specifically marketing team. The creative studio, which I run and oversee, it lives in the marketing org currently at Lyft, and we're really set up to cover like the full creative lifestyle. So I've got brand and design, so visual identity, campaign concepting, um, all the fun stuff, right? And then, that's on sort of one end, and then the other end of our team as well, we've got production and creative operations, and so we're all those, um, expertise are divided across our 3 offices right now, Toronto, New York, and San Francisco.
Okay, wow. So it's hybrid because you have these several different offices. I imagine you have some days you can stay at home and work. But in terms of complete remoteness, Lyft does not outsource talent, right? It's not like you're looking for team members in Argentina or in South Africa to cover for time zones or anything like that.
Well, no, great question. No, that's not, no, we're not set up that way right now. We're hybrid. We're in office 3 days a week. Right now it's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that's just, to facilitate inter-office, of course, but then should you need to travel, which does happen quite a bit at Lyft, if you're traveling, then exactly what days your counterparts are in the office as well. So if I'm traveling, for example, I always make sure that I'm in San Francisco for Wednesdays and Thursdays specifically, knowing that my other teammates will be in as well. But
Okay.
yeah, we're definitely not, there may be a couple of folks, on the team that may have some accommodations, Andreas, for full remote working, but that is not the spirit or the culture of Lyft as a whole.
And Cass, after I talk about team members and teams and everything internally in the company, I love to use this as a segue into the trending topic of the moment, which is AI. And I would love to know is, are you able to share some insight in how Lyft is leveraging AI nowadays? Maybe some peculiar processes or solutions that you guys have devised with AI that you can tell us about?
Yeah, it's a great question, and, I'll be honest, I think about where maybe my headspace was, good 8 months ago. It was very skeptical and very unsure and very resistant to even wanting to explore or understand AI. And my CMO, Brian, Irving, was very encouraging and very, influential in ensuring that the marketing org as in general, not just creative studio, but the marketing org in general was, getting just and embracing an AI journey. Like we're all in it together. Let's educate and learn together. No one knows more, no one knows less. Like let's just try and like ground zero, like just start fresh, and everyone kind of came along the AI journey together. But before I dive into like what we're doing within Creative Studio, Lyft's been doing some pretty interesting things with AI as a key to helping drive. I'll just use our drivers as an example to, no pun intended, I said to drive effective routes for them. So let's say you're a driver, maybe you are a busy mom or dad. You only have the hours of, okay, you drop the kids off, at school by 9, you need to pick them up by 3. So you've got about 6 hours of your day to like maximize making the most money you can. We have an AI tool within the platform that allows drivers to choose, sort of the routes they want to take, the hours that they have, and the money they want to make. They can input all of this, and AI will really help generate a route for them to take for the day, so that
Wow.
so that really we're maximizing their efficiency and trying to really help them make the most they can out of their time and their day. So I'm pretty proud of that particular way that the brand is using AI outside of the creative space. More specifically with my team, Andreas, we started a 12-week sprint. No, about it's okay, 10 to 12-week sprint back in early October. And we just, as a creative team, embarked on understanding what tools were out there, what processes we wanted to sort of make more efficient, and also, at the end of the day, what did we want AI to be for us? Of course, nobody wants it to be a replacement for creativity. And I absolutely, now that I've had the time to play with AI at Lyft in the ways that we have to play with, discover, I really do believe that AI is one of the most interesting creative tools that we have had in a long time. I think it is a multiplier for creativity, as I just said, not a replacement for it. And I think you need to find yourself in environments that believe the same. So I'm very lucky at Lyft that we believe AI should be an accelerator to our work, not a replacement for our work. Um, we've been using it for things like brainstorming, getting to prototypes faster, pressure testing concepts, A/B testing, things like that. So now, different mindset than I was about 8 months ago. I'm very much using AI day to day, and the team is being encouraged to use it day to day. Um, However, as much as we're using AI tools, really the insight, the taste, and the judgment of the work, it still has to come from my team. I don't believe that is what AI can replace. So creativity is really ultimately about still understanding humans, still understanding culture, and I think that's something technology can support, but certainly not replace.
But I feel AI right now, it's crawling. It was born, it started to exist, it's only crawling. And if you don't, what's it called? Like perch it up and help it be okay, it's gonna fall down and it's gonna make mistakes and it's not ready to roll by itself just yet. And what I feel is gonna be, it's what's happening with us is that it's not here to replace us. It's here to elevate us. And you mentioned a word that I love that I use so much, and it's the fact that the human judgment is the thing that remains, that is so important, because you can't replace taste. And you can give the same AI to 5 different people, and they'll all prompt it differently. You'll give them the same goal, and they'll all use different prompts and end up with a different result, even though it was the same AI. And that is where the distinction is going to come, because it's who can use the AI better now. It's not who can work best, but who uses it better.
Absolutely. We've been actually really uh, diving deep on prompting and really understanding how to prompt different tools, how to prompt different tools to work both individually, but then how to get those tools also working together, between like bringing things from Weavy into Figma, from Figma into, Google Docs. So, yeah, crazy, but exciting and interesting and all those things at the same time. But I'm with you on the judgment piece, that has to be owned by humans still.
And Cass, I have one more question for you before we do finalize the episode, and that is, what is your goal for Lyft and what you want to accomplish in your role for the end of this year? Like, we're closing quarter 1 literally today and tomorrow, and now we have just 3 more quarters left. The year is flying by, but what would you love to accomplish with your team for the end of this year?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, 2 things. I know you just said 1, but I'm gonna give you 2 rounded into one maybe. My biggest priority over the next or the remainder of this year for sure is to continue to strengthen the brand, but to do so while driving business impact. I think that's the biggest shift when you come from creative agency side, excuse me, to brand side. Your role is to do both. You're not just creating strength for the brand. You have to be thinking about how it's driving real business impact.
Okay.
And so I'm very focused on making sure the brand's showing up in ways that feel meaningful and consistent across all of our experiences and touch points for the remainder of the year. Um, I think that that's going to mean, for sure, one thing, continuing to build creative work that people remember. So really pushing the team, my team to create and our marketing team to, buy into work that is relevant and inspiring, but also making sure that it's very tightly tied to the product and the value we're delivering for our riders and our drivers. So, um, maybe to sum that up, like the goal for me is balance. You have to be doing work that's culturally interesting and keep sort of pushing creativity and being creatively strong, but also making sure you can get up in a boardroom and talk to an executive team member and talk about how that creative work was measurable and it was able to move the business forward. So I'm very focused on that balance, Andreas. And then secondly, I'm very focused on our team as a creative studio, um, owning creative excellence, but then scaling creative excellence across the marketing org. Yes, we drive it as the owners, I guess, of the creative, but I think it's really important that everyone across the marketing org understand how we get to great ideas, how to evaluate great ideas, how to push great ideas. So that would be the second part of my answer on the priority for this year is creative excellence, owning it across the studio, scaling it across the marketing org.
It really will get you guys even farther from where you are now, which I know it's been a lot, but I can only expect amazing things for Lyft in the future. And especially with you and that creative team. And with that said, Cass, we really appreciate you hopping on today, for being able to talk to us, tell us your insights, your story, and all about Lyft. It really has been an excellent conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas. Appreciate you so much, guys. This was fun.
It really was. And to anybody who is here listening to us, we really appreciate you as well for being on the show with us, for being able to hop on and listen to all the different personalities that we're talking to and all the different industries that we're learning about. So with that said, have a good one.